I started my day with a trip to the DMV, so you know things are going to go well. First hands of consequence, I have ace-king suited on the button. The low jack brings it in for a raise. It folds to me, and of course I put in a 3-bet to about 3x their raise. It folds around to the low jack, and they make the call. We see a dirty little flop of 7-5-3 with a flush draw, and this is where things get weird. They lead out for that min bet. I'm getting about 19-1, so I'm certainly not folding. What I like to do in these spots is basically ignore the bet and think, what would I have done if they checked? Because it's kind of like a check. It's not a check, but it functions almost like a check. And truthfully on this board, I'm not loving it for my range or my hand, so I'm going to mix some checkbacks and some bets, right? I might bet third pot sometimes, maybe half pot, I don't know. But, you know, I've got the overpair advantage, but they're going to have more sets, I believe. And so they have the nuttiness advantage. So I think, okay, I might have checked it back, so I'm just going to call this bet. The turn's a 9, which is kind of a brick. 8-9 got there, 8-6 made the straight, and they check it to me. Okay, that's cool. Let's see another card. I think I've got some showdown value. Now I've definitely got some showdown value. They check it to me one more time. And I spend a little bit of time thinking, how much do I want to size here? Usually I'm not going to bet less than half pot against a reasonable opponent. But so far my opponent does not seem entirely reasonable. So I go ahead and bet third pot. And then they continue being unreasonable. And they a little less than 3x, 3.5, or a little more than 3x, right? About 3.5 times the size of my bet is the size of their raise, and I'm thinking, I managed to level myself into a call because I had taken a while and used this smaller sizing, but I think one of the reasons that we use this small sizing is because, you know, I don't think they have that much unless they have a lot, and when they put the check raise in, I think I probably should have just believed them, but I made the call, and they had a set of 5s, because of course they did. So I decided to take a note on this player. In fact, I'm still in the process of taking a note on the rather odd way this person played their flopped set in a 3-bet pot when they opened the low jack again. And I 3-bet them again. I have kings again, this time of the pocket variety. It folds around to the big blind, who decides to come along for the fun of it. And the low jack raiser makes the call. So the flop comes out jack 5-3. Rainbow. Very dry. A hand like pocket jacks, maybe either of these players could have. Pocket 5s, pocket 3s, I guess possible. Also, a lot of jack X. They both check to me. I'm not sure if I'm going to range bet here into 2 opponents. I might. This is such a dry board. But I certainly feel good having kings here. I've got aces, kings, queens at full frequency. My opponents shouldn't have them very much. So I go with a half pot bet. I think I'm probably going to have some checks and then use half pot at some frequency. Using third pot at full frequency might be an option, like just betting range here. The first player folds, the big blind who's interceding in our, our affairs, and they min check raise me again. This person who is the low jack, who I just seen them play a set on a board. It was 3-5-7. This is 3-5 jack. Very different boards, really. Even though the 3 and the 5 are the same, the jack is totally disconnected here, and there's no flush draw, right? So, you know, it feels like the sort of thing where, yeah, they could have flopped a set of, I guess, anything and be kind of trying to milk value with that min check raise, and then they're probably going to shove the turn. But then I just saw them play a set the other way. So I'm thinking, you know, maybe they don't have a set. I have kings. The SPR was only 4-1. Usually we're going to probably just get it in. When we have an SPR 4-1, we flop an overpair. You know, the dryness of the board makes it a little worse, but I go ahead and call, and the turn's an 8, which puts some flush draws out there, right? Some straight draws, which would have been super weird. Like, I guess if they had 6-7 and they had a gutter and they check raised it, now they're open-ended, they could have a jack X of hearts and be check raising that and be pretty happy. They jam, and I didn't give it too much thought. I kind of felt like just structurally, this is a spot where I can call. Exploitatively, maybe I can fold, but I just saw them play a set with this weird min bet line, so I'm thinking maybe this is a little less likely to be a set, right? It's a little more likely to be a jack X hand because we already know that they will play some of their sets a different way. Anyway, I called, and apparently their sets of 5s, they like to use the min bet. Their sets of 3s, they like to take a firmer position. No, I don't know, but you know, they had a set again. So, joy. All right, next hand, different table. Moving on. I've been running pretty good recently, so I wouldn't say that this all got to me too much. It felt a little hilarious, actually. I was like, they had a set, and then they had another set, and I lost with a pair of kings both times. Once like a good pair of kings, and the other one a river. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, these things happen, right? Maybe we'll get to flop a set. I have pocket threes. I raise the small blind. I'm going to raise, 40 something percent range here. The big blind decides to come along. Cool. Let's see if that's a pretty good flop. I flop a set. Sets are nice. Sets win pots. So I bet a little. I would have bet a third pot here probably. Pretty dry board. I mean, not dry board, but kind of disconnected, right? There's a 6 and the 3, so hands like 4-5, 7-5, 7-4 suited. I guess 4 deuce suited or 5 deuce suited. There's some straight draws, but there's these 2 very low cards, 1 high card. There is a flush draw, but in general on a board like this, I'm going to use a smaller sizing. Actually betting 80 cents here, which is or betting 79 cents, it takes more effort. So I just, bet 2 blinds. And then they raise me. Now, when we look at this raise, it's a pretty big raise, right? Is this a full pot size raise? It looks like a full pot size raise. 1. No, it's a little less, right? Full pot size would have been 573, 537 rather. Yeah. Anyway, it's a pretty large size raise. It's more than 4x. They're in position also, so I'm thinking they have a pretty strong range here, right? They're gonna have they could have some combo draws, but they can't have pair and a flush draw because I have the 3 of hearts. They could have maybe some other flush draws. They could have a hand like a good queen. They could have queen 6 suited. I mean, there's, I guess, a little bit of like 6-3 suited and queen 3 suited. That's possible. And yeah, that's about it. Of course, they could have a pocket 6s, right? So they could have overset me. And, queens, though, seems very unlikely. I think this is a fairly aggressive player, and so I think that they're probably going to be 3-betting queens all the time. So I decide to just call and then check raise the turn a lot of the time, as I think my opponent's range is pretty strong. Having said that, I probably could just come over the top here and then jam a lot of turns. I was thinking if the turn is a heart, I might just check call the turn. Anyway, I call, and the turn's an ace of spades, which is an interesting card because now all of a sudden, a lot of my, like if I had a nut flush draw, I made top pair. If they had a nut flush draw, they made top pair. If either of us had a hand like ace queen, now we've got top 2. I check again. I consider leading a bit. I think the ace is a card that we can lead some, but mostly maybe flush cards are what we're going to lead if we ever lead. Anyway, I go ahead and check, and they bet very large, right? They bet close to the size of the pot, like 80%, 80 something percent. And I look at the stacks, check raising to pot would have been like 38 or something. So I decided to just rip it. And if they have a flush draw, they're not going to realize their equity. I don't think there's a lot of other good options for sizings. I could call and let them try and barrel off river. Although I feel like on the board like this, on this run out with the ace on the turn, maybe they're a little less likely to do that. I don't know. Maybe they're going to try and run me off 7s through jacks. Maybe I would play this way and check call turn. But I decided to just put it in now. My opponent makes what turns out to be a slightly unprofitable probably against my range, definitely against my hand, but very understandable call, right? They have an open-ended straight draw plus a flush draw. When we actually look at what the equity is, they need around 35 to 36% equity. It's really hard to have that with 5 high on the turn. On the flop, they're flipping with a lot of hands, right? There may be a favorite against some 1-pair hands. On the turn, it's harder, So anyway, but who wants to fold a straight and a flush draw? I mean, certainly not someone who's about to make it, right? So run into a set, lose with a set. So far, so good. Maybe the problem was that I was playing hands that were too good. So I've got Jack 10 offsuit here. Really, it's standard open from the cutoff. I'm going to be opening this all the time unless there's like a super aggro button or something. I get cold called by the small blind, which is a little weird. It seems a little bit out of line. Anyway, the flop comes king 7, 10. And I flop middle pair, a decent kicker. No backdoor flush draw, a couple backdoor straight draws, or a few. I guess there's a few ways I can make a backdoor straight. This is a hand that I think can go either way. I think we can bet it for value. We can check it back. I don't believe this is a board that we want to be betting range. in the cutoff against a small blind cold call, yeah, they're going to have hands like deuces through sixes that are just going to check fold here, or they might have those hands. Maybe hands like pocket eights and nines that we can get value from, maybe some 7x. They're going to have straight draws and flush draws. They can also have a good amount of king X and hands like pocket sevens. Pocket tens probably 3-bet pre, and we're blocking that pretty good. So I think this is a nice hand to put in our check back range and maybe go for value on future streets or use as a bluff catcher some of the time. But I don't think betting it would necessarily be wrong. They check, I check, and the turn's a 4, which is just a brick, and they check. And I think, yeah, I can go for some value here now, right? I think a king is usually going to bet here. A better 10 might bet here. I could be out value owning myself against like ace 10, queen 10. That's fine. I can get some value from a 7, from like 8s or 9s or some pocket pairs. I do go for value and I get called. And then the river's a jack, which improves my hand, but it also puts 3 ways to make a straight on board. So when they check it to me, you know, I don't think I want to go too big here. I can try, like, mostly I don't want to go too big because I don't think their hand's that strong, right? They could maybe have some king X, some weak king X or something like king 9 of hearts or spades or something, I guess. But mostly I think I'm trying to get value from like another 10, maybe something that I was behind on the turn, but now that I caught up. And this I do think is a reasonable spot to bet fold. I'm going to have some straights here that maybe I had ace queen or queen 9 or, you know, 8-9 that decided to check it back and then start bluffing later. I bet half pot and I get called, I think, pretty quickly. And did they have, I mean, I got called by a 7 again. It's kind of a marginal hand. If I try and go for 3 streets of value here, I'm not sure that I get it. So I don't think I'm really losing value by checking back flop. I think we should have some checkbacks on the flop that aren't just like garbage hands. So maybe the tide's turning a little bit. All right, we got Jack 10 again on the button this time. There is a caller. There are 2 folders. I decide to make a pot size isolation bet. It goes exactly how you think it would. Not an isolation at all, is it? The small blind calls, and then this big blind is like, how about we play for more? And, you know, after putting in a raise of this size, I'm not always going to be able to call a 3-bet, but I'm looking at the sizing, and I'm thinking, like, that's not that big of a sizing. I've got pretty decent odds, even if they have, like, a really nutted range. My hand plays pretty well against nutted ranges, and, like, this is also just weird, so maybe they have some weird stuff too. So I go ahead and make the call. The small blind decides that's just too much for them. And that's, you know, I flop all right here. And they go ahead and bet half pot. Now, if they have this nutted range, they're going to have top set, middle set, bottom set, top 2 pair, you know, maybe top and bottom pair. There's like all sorts of good stuff for them to have here. So I could just kind of play it fast. At the same time, I don't only have the nut straight, I also am a hair club member. No, that's not it. No. I also have a royal flush draw. So it's like, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? The board can pair, but maybe it'll be the queen of diamonds. Maybe I'll make, you know, a royal against like aces full or something. So I think this is a spot where if you're going to raise some jack 10 and flat some jack 10, this is the jack 10 to flat here, right? Because it's just very robust. There just aren't a lot of bad runouts. I mean, sure, they could have like queen 9 of diamonds or something weird and we could lose to a diamond. Or they could have like ace 10 and a jack could come on the river. But like, you know, I think letting them keep the betting lead works. I let them keep the betting lead. The turn is a 9 of spades. And now when they bet a little more than half pot and more than half their stack. So at this point, I think we just put it in. Right, there's no need to like continue to slow play now that they put this much in. I don't think they're folding anything here that they were then going to put money in on the river with very much, right? So I think we're basically just getting the chips in. We get the chips in and they call rather quickly. Actually, not super, was it? I don't know, who cares? Anyway, they call and yeah, so they have some weird stuff in their range apparently. The river is a jack and they should have had ace 10. But they didn't, so win a nice big pot and actually build up a little bit of a stack. A short time later, at this same table, I pick up pocket queens. There's a caller again. It's the same caller. I decide to raise again. This time I go 5x, which is my preferred thing, usually I hit pot if I'm like in a hurry and I'm clicking around elsewhere. I'm like, pot. So my bet sizing isn't always exactly how I want it to be. So I go for an isolation, and this time I get even less isolated than I did last time. And I continue flopping well, though. Of course, this is the second nut. Someone could have 8-8. If they did, they probably wouldn't lead out for full pot. And then the next person folds, and then this person calls full pot size bet. So it's possible that we're up against quads and a straight flush draw or something like that. But I think it's more likely that each of these players has an 8, or one of them has a single 8 and another has like a flush draw or whatever. And since they both seem really happy, very intent on putting chips in the pot, like it's full pot size, right, on a paired board, I think this is a spot where we can be tempted to slow play. And I'm not saying the slow play is necessarily bad, but if somebody has an 8 and the turn's like a jack of clubs or something, they might get spooked. So I think this is a spot where we can just go ahead and put the raise in right away. Truthfully, maybe it doesn't matter that much. It's basically about weighing, do we want to let them catch up but not catch up, and like lose anyway, right? Or do we want to keep them from getting spooked on a card that where we might have outdrawn them, right? Where like if say that jack of clubs comes, then maybe 7-8 gets a little scared and doesn't want to put all the money in. And we're pretty deep with the player on my left, right? The player across from us has kind of a normal size stack. Player on the left, we're almost 100 blinds deep to start the hand. So I decided to just put the raise in right now. I make it pretty small though. You know, I didn't give too much thought to the sizing. I basically thought I don't want to raise too much. I kind of want to like almost click it back, but not a pure click back. Give them some rope to kind of just like rip it if they want. Or like they're never, I don't think people are bet folding flush draws for this amount, right? And if they did call, if the player on my left calls, then there's going to be 60 in the middle and they're going to have 60 in the stack. So really easy turn shove. But no such thing happens. It goes shove, shove, or call. And yeah, let's put all the chips in, right? And it turns out they did each have an 8. And we are basically, they're drawing dead to running aces. So I think that's like 0.3% of pot, something like that. Or chance that they can get there, which is very small. And they don't get there. Fortunately, nobody had 9-10 of clubs. That would have been unpleasant. But yeah, things are going a little better now. Meanwhile, back at this other table, I pick up ace-10 of hearts. I put in a raise, and the button cold calls. And we get another pretty good flop. So the day started off kind of rough, but it's getting a little better. Unfortunately, I don't have a backdoor royal to go with my Broadway. However, we'll make do. I bet half pot, as on this board, I think I can use larger sizings. Of course, I am going to have some ace-10 and 10-9. I'm also going to have all the sets. My opponent should theoretically have none of the sets. Also, ace-king and ace-ace, I'm going to have all of. They can have some two-pair combos. One nice thing about having the nut straight is I'm unblocking all of the pairs, right? So, yeah, I said they shouldn't have the sets, but king-queen, king-jack, queen-jack, those are all hands that players will call with suited, and a player like this who's a little, you know, on the looser side, maybe they're going to call with all the offsuit combos as well. So that's 27 offsuit, 27 combos including the offsuit varieties, right? Also, like, they could have a 10-9, and we could go to town here. I bet half pot, they call. You know, I think larger than half pot is worth considering, but, you know, in general, I'm not going to do that. I think we should, if I choose a good turn sizing, be able to, well, we're not really going to get the money in, right, that easily. But I went ahead and I think I made like a half pot turn sizing, which I don't love. It looks like more than half pot, but that's after the rake. I think I should have gone bigger here, more like 3/4. I could even consider overbetting and then jamming river. When my opponent calls here, I think they're going to have, you know, various assortments of pair, two pair, pair plus straight draw, that sorts of stuff. So a lot of hands that are going to call, they're not going to have like pocket sevens that call once and fold turn, right? That's probably mostly going to fold on the flop. Maybe a hand like ace X is going to call once and fold. But, you know, there's flush draw here too that people can have, or they can put me on if they want to. So I think a larger sizing would have been better here. And I truthfully, this hand was happening exactly when the queen's full was happening. So I was a little distracted. And I was like, oh, I better bet. So I barely got this bet in under the wire. But I think a larger sizing would be better. Now on the river, on the river, we basically have two choices here, right? We can choose a really small kind of block bet size. Not like in general, we could do that with a hand like king queen or like ace or like a set of jacks or whatever. We can do that with some hands if we think, well, our opponent is going to have a very weak range of hands that can call us, so we want to put in a small bet to try and get calls from those. Or here, if I think they have a 10 and I make a small bet, maybe I'm kind of inducing a raise. Or we could go with a big over bet and just be like, I want to win the most when you have a 10. And if they don't have a 10, then they're probably going to fold. I opted to go with that. The fact that I have a 10 and I'm blocking 10 thusly, I don't know, maybe it's not the best, but, you know, it worked. And they had one of the best hands that they could have for me, right? They had the open-ended straight draw. They got to the bad end of it instead of catching the ace. And they had top pair, which they were probably going to call down. If the river weren't a 9, I might have gone with a smaller sizing. Because here I just thought there was a very clear band of hands that could call this overbet that we're losing, right? Like any 10, basically. And a 10 can often be played with a king, with a queen, with a jack, with a 9, right? So it was easy for them to get to this point with a lot of 10x. So anyway, that's that hand. If I had structured the turn a little better, if I'd gone a little bigger on the turn, I think maybe I just jam this river, get the same result. Two more hands for you. First one's going to be kings. Second one's going to be aces. Spoilers. This one is interesting. So far, the session has gone bad, bad, good. And now, where are we? I've got kings. I open. I get 3-bet. I'm mentally sizing my 4-bet sizing. I'm like, all right, let's see. We've got about 63 blinds to start the hand, 64 blinds. So if I make it like 1 and change, they make it 4 and change. So that's actually kind of a big 3-bet sizing. How much am I going to make it? I'm going to make it like 11 or 12, something like that, right? I don't want to go too small because we're a little bit deep. And then, I guess I won't 4-bet. I guess I'll decide whether to 5-bet or not. Now, one reason that I didn't spend a lot of time deciding whether to 5-bet. Yes, this person made like a min re-raise, right? Yeah, I raised, they re-raised, they made a min re-raise. Like, what? What? But they've only got $30, right? 60 blinds to start the hand. Kings, I'm just going to stack off for 60 blinds. And I could flat and then let them in behind me, but I don't think so. So I'm trying to figure out sizing, and I'm like, well, I could make it like 27 or 25 or something. But like then there's not that much left back anyway. So I just ripped it, and like I guess you could make an argument for making it more like 25, something like that. And then this person actually has like what are they gonna do for 20 more? But then I've got 38 left. It's not like I'm raise folding here, right? So I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna rip it, and basically I'll have ace king here sometimes. I'll have aces and kings, and like I guess queens maybe. Probably less than that. I'm just folding. I don't know. Anyway, I put it in, fold. Yay! Oh, no, sorry. First they show their cards. Yay! They only have 10s. I have kings. Things have gone well for us with kings today, right? No, that's... No, they haven't. They have not. Kings haven't done so well. All right, that's fine. What about aces? We've got aces. This could be a pivotal hand that determines the fate of the session. I've got pocket aces on the button. I raise. There's a fold. The same person that I flopped with Jack 10 on the ace king queen flop decides to come along, and the flop is ace king queen. Again, with the ace and the king suited, and the queen is an offsuit. And they check to me, and like, they could have Jack 10. And we've got like a 30-1 SPR here. So, is that right? Yeah, we've got like a 30. It's a very high SPR. Because I just made it, a little over 2 blinds pre. So, am I doing the math right? I guess I am. Yeah, I mean, it's less than. It's probably like 25, whatever. But the point is, like, it's high. It's a high SPR. It's not 30. It's not 30, but it's 20-something. So, I'm going to bet, and we're going to see what happens. Oh, yeah, well, that was anticlimactic. Anyway, somehow I escaped from this session that started horrible, went great, and then had a little bit of a blip with a win of about 1 buy-in, about $50.25. So, yeah, anyway, that's that. Let me know if you like this format. I'm thinking I'm going to do more like this format. I'll probably try and make it a little tighter. Maybe this session, just I wanted to do a format like this, and then this session, I just got a bunch of interesting hands. I was like, let's do it this time. So I'm going to edit this down. We'll see how it goes. Let me know how you like it. Like and subscribe, and or comment, all of that stuff.